Film noir is not a minor genre. It is an autopsy of modern moral decay that was already palpable back in the 1940s. It is the art of filming betrayal, blind desire, and that ambition which always ends in a dead-end alley. Noir cinema has given us some of the greatest masterpieces in the history of the seventh art. Today, we move away from the obvious to enter the canon of the eternal. From the film that inspired Travis Bickle, Drive, and many more, to the screenplay that is by consensus the best of all time. We begin this descent into hell with a work that is, in itself, the skeleton of the genre. In 1947, film noir was not a fashion. It was the reflection of a broken society after the war, and out of the past is its perfect exponent. Jacques Tourneur films an ambush. Jeff Bailey believes he has buried his past under the anonymity of a gas station, but in noir, yesterday is a ghost that does not accept being forgotten. When a dangerous gangster summons him to hunt down the woman who shot him and stole a fortune, Jeff begins a journey into an abyss from which no one emerges intact. From the first minute, we know that fate is already written, that every decision is just one more step toward an inevitable end. Robert Mitchum embodies the noir man like few others, tired, lucid, trapped in a past that never left. But it is Jane Greer who elevates the film to the eternal. Her gaze does not promise love, it promises a fall, and yet it is impossible to turn away. Tourneur ensures that every frame and every sharp line of dialogue feels like a stab to hope. Every shot, every shadow, every silence pushes the protagonist toward that dead-end alley mentioned by the voiceover. It is a sentence on the impossibility of being free when your soul is already mortgaged.
Look at here. You know what that is? You want to see something cute? Now, looky.
In 1955, cinema was not yet ready for something like this. The Night of the Hunter did not just break the rules. It twisted them until they became a nightmare. Because what Charles Laughton does here is introduce a new kind of fear into the heart of the viewer, that of evil disguised as faith. And at the center of it all, Robert Mitchum constructs something that at the time was almost unthinkable. Cinema's first great child killer. Harry Powell, a religious fanatic with the words love and hate tattooed on his knuckles, pursues two orphaned children to kill them and keep their money. There are no city gangsters here. There is a real predator, a monster who uses faith to hide an insatiable bloodlust. Robert Mitchum, once again, gives us a performance that still freezes the blood today. He speaks of love while wearing hate tattooed on his knuckles. And that contradiction makes him something much more disturbing than any monster. Because he does not look like a villain. He looks like someone you would trust. Laughton uses impossible lights and shadows that look like claws to tell us that, in the real world, monsters do not live under the bed. They carry a Bible under their arm. It is film noir merging with primal terror. A film that whispers in your ear that the purest evil is that which knows how to smile while chasing you in the dark. In Sunset Boulevard, Billy Wilder filmed a prophecy about how fame devours its children until they are left empty. The premise is already a stroke of genius. The narrator is a corpse floating in a pool telling us how he is going to die. From there, we descend into Norma Desmond's mansion. If noir usually deals with men fleeing from their past, Norma is a woman chained to one that no longer exists. What seems like a drama of ambition becomes a suffocating psychological noir, where a screenwriter believes he has found a shortcut, without realizing he has already been devoured by the system. It is cinema looking in the mirror and spitting at its own reflection. Wilder broke all the industry taboos by showing a real star, Gloria Swanson, playing a decadent version of herself. He does not portray Hollywood. He decomposes it. Because here, cinema is not a dream. It is a graveyard of stars who refuse to accept that they are already dead. The film forces us to see an uncomfortable truth. Fame is a drug that, when it runs out, turns you into a monster. It is noir turned into Greek tragedy, a reminder that dreams in this business always end in hell. The final shot, with Norma descending toward the camera in full delirium, is the definitive image of someone who no longer distinguishes between who she was and who she believes she still is. If you understand that cinema is more than just entertainment, subscribe and give me a like. Join the canon and leave your favorite noir film in the comments. Get ready, because this has only just begun.
Step out in the light and let's have a look at you. Who's your boss?
Eu sou técnico, mano, você está louco. Sounds must.
In The Third Man, Carol Reed turns a city into a moral labyrinth. Post-war Vienna appears broken, damp, full of shadows and empty streets. Holly Martins, a pulp fiction writer, arrives in the city to visit his friend Harry Lime, only to discover that he has died in an accident. Or so they say. What makes this work a piece of absolute perfection is the handling of mystery, and of course, the shadow of a man who is not there. When Harry Lime, played by a magnetic Orson Welles, finally appears, it is arguably the most legendary entrance in film history. A cat, a window light that flickers on, and that mocking smile of one who knows he has cheated death. Lime is no ordinary villain. He is a charming psychopath who traffics in adulterated penicillin, playing with the lives of thousands of children for a handful of bills. But the climax arrives at the Ferris wheel with one of the most psychopathic and lucid monologues ever written. Lime justifies his crimes by comparing people to ants from the heights. His defense of tyranny over peace is a blow of perverse reality. He reminds us that while the bloody Italy of the Borgias produced the Renaissance, peaceful Switzerland only produced the cuckoo clock. It is cynicism elevated to the category of art. Carol Reed ensures that every Dutch angle conveys the instability of a world that has lost its way.
No, I never loved you, Walter, not you or anybody else. I'm rotten to the heart. I used you just as you said.
If film noir had 10 commandments, Double Indemnity would be the first. In 1944, Billy Wilder did not just shoot a movie, he wrote the genre's instruction manual. There is no escape here, only an inevitable descent, where we begin by seeing a man bleeding out while confessing his story, and the viewer accepts the journey with almost masochistic pleasure. An overconfident insurance agent crosses paths with Barbara Stanwyck, the definitive femme fatale. She does not need a weapon. A shiny anklet and a plan to murder her husband are enough. From there, the plot becomes a Swiss clockwork mechanism, where every step they take to hide the crime sinks them deeper into the mire. What makes this work reach perfection is its lack of mercy. There is no deception here. From the first second we know they have failed, because we hear the confession of a man who is already sentenced. But the soul of the film is the intellectual duel between Neff and his boss, Barton Keyes, the man who smells a lie before it is even spoken. Double Indemnity is the art of filming greed and desire as a terminal illness, an absolute classic that reminds us that when you walk toward the abyss, you always do so arm in arm with someone who is willing to push you. We abandon American cynicism to embrace the European soul. Le Cercle Rouge is not only the best heist movie in history, it is an ode to loyalty and honor above evil, even above the law. Jean-Pierre Melville, the great master of silence, distills the genre to its bones. Here motives do not matter, the ritual matters. A convict, a fugitive, and a disgraced policeman are drawn by an invisible force, that red circle of fate, to execute an impossible heist. What makes this work reach perfection is its central sequence. 27 minutes of a jewelry store robbery in absolute silence. No music, no dialogue, only the breathing of men who know they are signing their own sentence. Alain Delon, with his trench coat and icy gaze, embodies the modern samurai. A man who does not fear death, but rather a lack of morality. Melville teaches us that, in a rotten world, the only real value is one's word. It is not just crime cinema, it is a liturgy of loneliness and inevitable destiny. It is cinema in its purest state. With direction and cinematography worthy of the greats of history, Melville teaches us that true noir does not happen in screams, but in glances and unbreakable codes of honor. With Touch of Evil, we reach the end of an era. Orson Welles officiated the funeral of classic film noir. From its 3-minute opening tracking shot, a bomb placed off camera, we already know that time is contaminated. Everything is going to explode. The story places us on a corrupt border, a moral limbo where a narcotics agent, Charlton Heston, clashes with the titan of decadence, Captain Hank Quinlan. Welles, in the shoes of Quinlan, constructs the most tragic and repulsive villain of the genre, a cop who no longer believes in the law, only in his rotten instinct and the evidence he plans to do justice. If you wonder why the film is so close to the podium, it is because its staging is miraculous. Wells uses impossible camera angles so that we feel the weight of physical and moral corruption. There are no clean heroes, only men sinking into the mud of their decisions. Touch of Evil is the testament of a genius who knew that cinema would never be so dark or so free again. Because although the world and cinema today seem less censored, it is our own lack of morality that has imprisoned us. A golden closure that reminds us that, sometimes, to catch evil, you must be willing to become something much worse. We enter the podium with an absolute truth. High and Low is probably the best directed film on this entire list, and perhaps the definitive masterpiece if we dare to look beyond film noir. Here, Akira Kurosawa does not limit himself to narrating a crime. He uses the camera to cut open the resentment caused by class differences in post-war Japan. The plot is a trap of pure tension. Kingo Gondo, a powerful shoe executive, is about to risk everything to gain control of his company. At that critical moment, he receives a call. His son has been kidnapped. But there is a cruel twist. The criminal has made a mistake and captured the chauffeur's son instead. Gondo then faces the most terrifying moral dilemma in cinema. Is a man's fortune worth more than the life of an employee's son? Kurosawa's genius lies in the structure. The first half is a suffocating chamber piece, filmed almost entirely in a penthouse overlooking the city. The characters move like chess pieces in a space that sweats anguish. The second half breaks down the walls and throws itself into the streets, becoming the most perfect police procedural ever filmed, culminating in a train sequence that is a masterclass in editing and rhythm. It is not just a film about a kidnapping, it is a study of resentment and envy. The villain, hidden in the hot and miserable suburbs, hates Gondo simply because he lives above, in the air conditioning, while he rots below. It is noir elevated to sociological tragedy. A work of mathematical precision where every frame communicates power, guilt, and the terrifying distance that separates two human beings who breathe the same air but live in different worlds.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Chinatown holds the title for the best screenplay in history. It is as clear as that. A masterpiece that achieved the impossible, surpassing classic film noir on its own turf and with its own weapons. In 1974, Roman Polanski and screenwriter Robert Towne did not just resurrect the genre, they took it to a technical and narrative maturity that no one has touched since. The plot introduces us to Jake Gittes, a detective specializing in infidelities who believes he knows the rules of the game. But while investigating a seemingly routine affair, he ends up unearthing a conspiracy for control of Los Angeles' water that smells of blood and unspeakable secrets. The genius of this work lies in its absolute fatalism. We accompany Nicholson through a labyrinth where every clue is a step closer to the abyss. It is not just a film about political corruption. It is a study of the depravity of power embodied in Noah Cross, a villain who does not seek money, but rather the ownership of the future. Without getting into spoilers, what has made this film go down in history is its ending. It is not a cheap plot twist, although it blows our minds. Rather, it is a Shakespearean tragedy with a film noir aesthetic. It is the most devastating and perfect closure in modern cinema. A punch that reminds us of the power of evil, and by contrast, the incredible value of good, however scarce and sometimes insufficient it may be.
Qui êtes-vous? Aucune importance. Que voulez-vous? Vous tuer.
We reach the end of the journey. If film noir is a religion, the number one spot is its sacred altar, Le Samouraï. In 1967, Jean-Pierre Melville achieved absolute perfection, distilling the genre until it became something purely spiritual. It is not just a movie, it is a lesson in style, a choreography of death, and the testament of a cinema that no longer exists. Melville forces us to observe. In its first 10 minutes, there is not a single word. Only the ritual of a man who does not need to explain anything because his gaze says it all. As the plot unfolds, we discover infinite layers of a character revealed through action. First we see a man, then we discover he is an assassin, and finally we understand he does it for a code that goes beyond money. The story introduces us to Jeff Costello, played by an Alain Delon who transcends acting to become an eternal icon. Costello is a hitman who lives by a strict code of solitude and precision. There are no emotions, no past, only the sacred gesture. Adjusting the brim of his hat in front of the mirror, putting on his white gloves, and executing the contract with the coldness of a surgeon. But when a witness sees him leaving a club after a murder, Costello becomes the prey in a deadly game of chess between the police and his own clients. Alain Delon gives life to the origin of a myth from which Travis Bickle, the driver from Drive, and Michael Mann's entire filmography would be born. Here, every silence weighs more than a scream, and every frame is a painting of icy beauty. Costello is not a psychopath. He is a modern samurai, a man with unbreakable honor who has renounced feeling emotions because modernity lacks them. It is number one because it is cinema in a state of grace. A choreography of shadows where fate is sealed from the very first frame. It is not a film about a crime. It is a liturgy on dignity in defeat. Le Samouraï teaches us that, in a world where all is chaos and betrayal, the only thing we have left is the elegance of knowing how and why to die. If you share this passion for cinema with Soul, subscribe and hit the bell. Let me know which masterpiece I have left out. I will read you in the comments. Do not let the algorithm decide what to watch. At Cineprime, you are in control. See you soon.